I was holding the keys to an $850,000 penthouse when my phone buzzed with a message that would destroy my world. Don't go to your son's wedding. Run. I thought it was a sick joke. I had no idea that in 9 days I'd watch my only child be arrested at his own wedding in front of 150 guests. But let me start at the beginning. The October sun painted everything gold through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Midtown Atlanta penthouse. I stood there, keys cold against my palm, trying to imagine the look on Brandon's face when I handed them to him. My son. My only child. The reason I'd spent 40 years building Richardson properties from nothing. The penthouse was perfect. Modern kitchen with marble countertops, hardwood floors that caught the afternoon light, a balcony overlooking Piedmont Park where the leaves were just starting to turn. Everything I dreamed of having at his age but couldn't afford until I was 50. I walked through the empty living room, my footsteps echoing. Brandon would love this space. I was certain of it. This wasn't just generosity, it was an apology. An apology for all those soccer games I'd missed because of property acquisitions. For all those parent-teacher conferences where I'd sent my assistant instead. For all those nights I'd come home after he was already asleep, too exhausted to read him a bedtime story. My late husband Robert used to say, "Amanda, you're building an empire, but who are you building it for?" For our son, I'd always answer. For Brandon's future. Well, Robert had been gone 8 years now. Died in a car accident when Brandon was 24. Never got to meet Amy, the woman Brandon would marry next Saturday. Never got to see the penthouse I'd bought as Brandon's wedding gift. But Robert would understand. This gift wasn't about showing off. It was about giving Brandon the start I never had. About proving that all those sacrifices, mine and his, had been worth it. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. 4:47 p.m. I'd spent almost an hour here mentally decorating, imagining Brandon and Amy's life in these rooms. The closing paperwork sat on the kitchen counter ready for my signature. I'd sign tomorrow, surprise Brandon with the keys at next Friday's rehearsal dinner. 9 days until the wedding. 9 days until I walked my son down the aisle since Robert wasn't here to do it. My phone buzzed in my hand. Unknown number. The message made my stomach drop. Don't go to your son's wedding. Run. I stared at the screen. Read it once, twice, 3 times. My thumb hovered over the call button, then pressed it. The phone rang, and rang, and rang. No voicemail, no answer. Just that mechanical ringing that seemed to mock me. I tried again. Same thing. By the 10th attempt, my hand was shaking. The sensible part of my brain, the part that had negotiated million-dollar deals without flinching, insisted this was a prank. Wrong number. Some bachelor party joke that Brandon's friends thought was funny. But that other voice, the instinct that had guided me through 40 years of business, whispered something different. Something was wrong. I forced myself to focus on the closing paperwork. Signed each document with mechanical precision, my signature looking shakier than usual. The penthouse was Brandon's now. Whatever that message meant, it wouldn't change my love for my son. I locked the door, pocketed the keys that suddenly felt heavier. In the parking garage, I checked over my shoulder 3 times before getting in my car. Sitting behind the wheel, I stared at that message one more time. Don't go to your son's wedding. Run. I deleted it. Started the engine. Some unknown number with a cryptic warning wasn't going to ruin my son's big day. I had a wedding to prepare for, a rehearsal dinner to plan, and a penthouse to surprise him with. I drove home to my Buckhead mansion, the house where Brandon grew up, where Robert and I had raised our boy, where every room held memories I couldn't bear to leave. I had no idea that in less than 12 hours, I'd wish I'd listened to that warning. Friday night, 11:47 p.m. I'd tried that unknown number 17 times since leaving the penthouse. Each time, nothing but ringing. I sat in my home office, the room where I'd built Richardson properties from a single property to a 10-building empire worth $45 million. Robert's photo sat on my desk, him at 40, grinning at some company event, arm around my shoulders. "What would you tell me to do?" I whispered to the photo. My phone rang. Unknown number. I nearly dropped my glass of whiskey. "Hello?" My voice came out rough, desperate. "Amanda, it's Philip Warren." The name hit me like a fist to the chest. Philip Warren. My former business partner. The man I'd trusted with half my company until cocaine destroyed him 8 years ago. We'd parted ways with lawyers and accusations, me buying him out while he spiraled into rehab. "Philip," I managed. "After 8 years, you—" "I know. I'm sorry for the cryptic message. I needed to be certain before I told you what I heard. My hand tightened around the phone. What did you hear? Tuesday morning, I was at Octane Coffee, you know, the one in Midtown near Piedmont Park. His voice sounded older, weathered. I was working on my laptop. Brandon came in with a woman and a man in a suit. My stomach dropped. And they sat at the corner table 20 feet from me. Amanda, they were there for 40 minutes. I heard everything. Everything about what? Philip's pause felt heavy. About you. About papers you signed. About their plan to take everything you own. The room tilted. That's not possible. Brandon wouldn't. The woman is that Amy, his fiancée, yes. She kept saying the old woman barely checks documents anymore. Brandon laughed. Said you'd signed everything without reading. That you trusted him completely. The whiskey turned sour in my mouth. Signed what? What documents? Trust papers, they called them. But Amanda, they weren't talking about protecting assets. They were talking about liquidating them. Selling everything. They mentioned a buyer, Summit Capital Group. My vision blurred. The family photo on my desk, Brandon's college graduation 5 years ago, both of us grinning, seemed to mock me now. I'd been so proud that day. My son about to enter the business world, following in his parents' footsteps. Philip, why are you telling me this? You disappeared 8 years ago. We haven't spoken since you saved my life by forcing me into rehab, even though I hated you for it. His voice cracked. I've been sober 6 years now, Amanda. I run an addiction recovery program. I was at that coffee shop for a meeting with a client. He paused. When I heard Brandon's voice, I almost left. But then I heard what they were planning, and I couldn't let them do this to you. It can't be true. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Had Brandon asked me to sign something recently, estate planning documents? When was that? There's more, Philip continued. They mentioned having everything ready right after the wedding. They talked about once you're in assisted living. Amanda, they were laughing about it. The woman mentioned knowing medical professionals who could provide the right diagnosis. For a price. My son, my only child. The boy I'd raised alone after Robert died. They're planning to have you declared incompetent, Philip said quietly. My own son wouldn't... Amanda, listen to me. I sat 20 feet away for 40 minutes. I heard the attorney discuss timeline process, how to make it look legitimate. This woman, Amy, she has connections to doctors who would diagnose you with cognitive decline. Dementia, whatever they need to get you into a facility. I couldn't breathe. The office walls seemed to close in. What papers? I finally asked. What did I sign? That's what you need to find out. Fast, because they mentioned Saturday tomorrow as a deadline for finalizing something. You don't have weeks to figure this out, Amanda. You have days, maybe less. The call ended. I sat in the darkness of my office staring at Brandon's graduation photo. 5 years ago, he'd hugged me tight after the ceremony and said, "Thanks for everything, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you." What happened between that moment and Tuesday morning at a Midtown coffee shop? My hands were shaking as I reached for my filing cabinet. Somewhere in there were documents Brandon had asked me to sign. Estate planning, he'd called it. Routine trust restructuring. I'd signed them 3 weeks ago without reading them carefully. Because I trusted my son. Saturday morning came too early. I'd barely slept 3 hours before I was tearing through my home office files. Cabinet drawers hit the floor. Manila folders spilled across my desk. 40 years of business documents scattered like autumn leaves. I didn't care about the mess. I needed to find what Brandon had tricked me into signing. Then the memory surfaced sharp and clear. 3 weeks ago, late September, Wednesday evening around 7. Brandon had shown up carrying a leather portfolio, the kind young professionals use when they want to look important. "Mom, my attorney needs you to sign some estate planning documents." I'd been reviewing contracts for a property acquisition in West Side. Barely looked up from my laptop. Estate planning. Just routine trust restructuring. Protects the family assets. Thomas Sullivan recommended we update these every few years. Thomas Sullivan, my own attorney's name. Of course I'd trusted it. Your attorney talked to Tom? Yeah, they coordinated on the language. Brandon had smiled that easy smile, the one that had melted my heart since he was 2 years old. You know how lawyers are everything in triplicate. I'd picked up my pen. Where do I sign? Initial here, sign here, date here. His finger had moved down the pages. We can discuss wedding details while you're at it. Amy wants your opinion on the reception menu. And like a fool, I'd signed, page after page, barely reading, discussing salmon versus steak while authorizing my own destruction. Brandon had gathered the documents, kissed my cheek, left whistling. That was 3 weeks ago, September 20th. Now, standing in my devastated office, I found the folder. It was labeled Estate Planning 2024 in my own handwriting. I'd filed them myself, trusting my son, never questioning what I'd actually signed. My hands shook as I spread the documents across my desk. Not trust restructuring, power of attorney, giving Brandon authority over my financial decisions, property transfer authorizations to something called Richardson Family Holdings, LLC. My laptop was already open. I pulled up the Georgia Secretary of State website, typed into the business registry search. Richardson Family Holdings, LLC, registered August 15, 2024. Managing member Brandon Andrew Richardson. Members Brandon Andrew Richardson. My name appeared nowhere, not as member, not as owner, not even as registered agent. Richardson Family Holdings. My family name on a company I didn't own, created by my son to steal from me. I kept reading through the horror. Preliminary sales agreement between Richardson Family Holdings, LLC, and Summit Capital Group, dated September 15, 2024. Purchase price, $18 million. Property descriptions. All 10 of my buildings. Market value, $45 million. They were selling my life's work for 60 cents on the dollar. A $27 million loss. The attorney's name appeared on every document's footer, Derek Walsh, Esquire. I stared at that name. Derek Walsh. Something about it nagged at my memory like a word on the tip of my tongue. Had I met him, worked with him? The name felt familiar in a way I couldn't place, but there wasn't time to figure that out now. My own signature stared back at me from document after document. Amanda Richardson, signed and dated September 20th, 2024, the day Brandon had come with his leather portfolio and his practiced lies. I'd been so proud that Brandon wanted to learn the business, wanted to understand estate planning, wanted to be responsible about the family legacy. He'd been learning all right, learning exactly which documents would let him steal everything I'd built. I grabbed my phone, scrolled through contacts until I found the name I needed. Michael Torres, private investigator. I'd used him for employee background checks, tenant screenings, due diligence on potential business partners. Now I needed him to investigate my own son. The phone rang twice. Michael Torres. Michael, it's Amanda Richardson. I need deep background on 2 people and I need it fast. How fast are we talking? Yesterday wasn't soon enough. Saturday afternoon, 4 p.m. I'd spent the day trying to act normal, returned emails about the wedding, confirmed the florist, responded to Brandon's text asking if I needed anything. Just excited for next week. I'd typed back each word, tasting like ash. My phone rang. Michael Torres. Amanda, I've got preliminary findings. You'll want to sit down for this. I was already sitting, but I gripped the edge of my desk anyway. Go ahead. Amy Stevens. $340,000 in credit card debt, maxed out over the last 18 months. Luxury spending, Hermes bags, Tiffany jewelry, designer clothes. She's also leasing an apartment in Buckhead for $8,500 a month. Started that lease in August. My heart pounded. What about income, Sub? No legitimate income source I can find. No job, no business, nothing that would support that lifestyle. And Brandon? Michael's pause told me everything. Brandon has $95,000 in personal loans. He bought a Porsche 911 last July, $120,000 vehicle. His monthly expenses run about $15,000. His salary from Richardson Properties is $6,500 a month. The math didn't work. Brandon couldn't afford his lifestyle on what I paid him. There's more, Michael said. I found the business entity Richardson Family Holdings, LLC, formed August 15th. But Amanda, there's a sales agreement dated September 15th, 1 month later. I saw it. $18 million for properties worth $45 million. They're drowning in debt, both of them, and your properties are their life raft. I closed my eyes. My son, my beautiful boy, drowning in debt I didn't even know about. Give me until tonight, Michael said. He said. I'm digging into Amy Stevens' background. Something's not adding up about her. Saturday evening, 7:30 p.m. Amanda? Michael's voice was grim. I found something. Amy Stevens' legal name until March 2019 was Jessica Walsh. The room spun. Walsh, like Derek Walsh. She changed her name in March 2019. Complete identity transformation. New Social Security card driver's license. Everything legal but deliberate. And Amanda Derek Walsh is her brother. 15 years crashed over me like a wave. Summer 2009. Derek Walsh. 20 years old. Bright, eager intern at Richardson Properties. I'd mentored him personally, saw potential in him. Then I'd caught him falsifying property appraisals, making a failing investment look viable to deceive potential buyers. Derek, these numbers are inflated, I'd said, showing him the comparable sales data. These aren't legitimate comparisons. They're cherry-picked outliers. His face had gone pale. It was just one small adjustment. The property is good, I swear. It's fraud. You falsified documents to deceive buyers. You're fired. I'm reporting you to the Georgia Real Estate Commission. I'd done it by the book. Professional. Ethical. I'd given him a chance to explain, but the evidence was clear. At my office door, he'd turned back. Rage twisted his young face. You're destroying my career over one mistake. I gave you everything. You destroyed it yourself, I'd said quietly. Actions have consequences. His final words, you'll regret this, Ms. Richardson. One day you'll pay for this. I'd dismissed it as an empty threat from a bitter 20-year-old. Now, 15 years later, I understood. It wasn't empty. It was a promise. After you fired him, Michael continued, Derek was blacklisted from major Atlanta firms. He's been practicing from a small East Point office ever since. His career never recovered. I pulled up Derek's website on my laptop. Derek Walsh Law Office. Same calculating eyes, just 15 years older. His sister would have been 13 when you fired him, Michael said. How did she meet Brandon? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Atlanta Real Estate Summit, June 2021, the conference you sent Brandon to. I remembered. Brandon had just turned 29. I'd been so proud to send him as Richardson Properties representative. Time to learn the business from other professionals, I'd told him. She approached him at the networking reception, Michael said. They were dating within a month. She'd hunted him. For 3 years, Jessica Walsh, pretending to be Amy Stevens, had dated my son, gotten engaged, planned a wedding, all while her brother fed her information about me, about my business practices, about exactly how to forge documents I'd sign without suspicion. Amanda, this is a 15-year revenge plot, Michael said. Derek couldn't hurt you directly, so he used his sister. They've been planning this since 2019. At least that's when Jessica changed her name. I thought about Brandon, my son. Had he known from the beginning, or had Jessica manipulated him first, then gradually brought him into the scheme I wanted to believe Brandon was a victim, that he'd been seduced by a beautiful woman, then slowly corrupted? But Philip's words echoed. Brandon laughed, said you'd signed everything without reading, that you trusted him completely. Brandon had laughed about stealing from his mother. Thank you, Michael. Keep digging. I need to know everything. After hanging up, I sat in my office as darkness fell outside. The Atlanta skyline glittered through my window. Somewhere out there, my son was planning his wedding, thinking he'd gotten away with it. Thinking his mother was just a foolish old woman who'd signed away everything without reading the fine print. He had no idea what 40 years of business experience could do in 8 days. Sunday evening, 6:00 p.m., I invited Brandon and Amy to dinner at my house. Pre-wedding family celebration, I'd called it. My voice had sounded normal on the phone, cheerful even. Inside I was dying, but I needed more evidence. Philip's recording of the coffee shop conversation wasn't enough. I needed Brandon to incriminate himself, in his own words, on recording. Michael Torres had installed professional recording equipment in my dining room that morning. Tiny cameras hidden in the floral centerpiece. Microphones embedded in the chandelier. Everything streaming to the cloud, backed up in real time. I also wore a small pin camera on my dress, just in case. The doorbell rang at exactly 6:00. Brandon hugged me tight. Love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. The words felt like glass in my throat. Amy looked radiant in a white sundress. Practicing for Saturday, I thought bitterly. She kissed my cheek, smelling of expensive perfume that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Amanda, thank you so much for having us. The wedding week is just chaos. I smiled. Poured wine, served the roast I'd made Brandon's favorite since he was a child. We talked about flowers, about the band, about the honeymoon plans to the Maldives. 2 weeks in an overwater bungalow, Brandon said. Paradise. Sounds expensive, I remarked casually. We've been saving. The lie came so easily to him. They were drowning in $435,000 of combined debt, but yes, they'd definitely been saving for a $25,000 honeymoon. Amy touched my hand. Amanda, have you thought about retirement? You've worked so hard for so long. You deserve to enjoy your golden years. Translation: when are you going to step aside so we can take over retirement? I laughed. I suppose eventually. You should, Amy pressed. Let the younger generation handle the stress. You've earned your rest. Brandon leaned forward. Actually, Mom, I've been thinking. After the honeymoon, I'd love to discuss taking on more responsibility at Richardson Properties. Maybe we could talk about a transition plan. We can definitely talk about that, knowing he planned to steal everything, not earn it. Amy's brother has been so helpful with the legal work, Brandon continued. Derek really understands estate planning. My blood ran cold. He was mentioning Derek publicly. They felt safe. They thought they'd won. Your brother's an attorney, I asked, Amy, voice innocent. That's wonderful. I don't think you've mentioned him before. Oh yes, Derek, we're very close. He's been practicing for years. Amy smiled. He's been invaluable with the family planning documents. Family planning? What a delicate way to describe fraud. Excuse me a moment, I said, standing. I need to get dessert from the kitchen. I went upstairs instead. Pulled out my phone, opened the app Michael had installed. The cameras in the dining room floral arrangement were streaming perfectly. I watched Brandon and Amy on my phone screen. Waited. Brandon glanced toward the kitchen, then leaned close to Amy. His voice dropped low, but the microphones caught everything. Think she suspects anything? Amy sipped her wine. No way. Your mother signed everything without reading. She's too trusting. Too sentimental. Derek says the documents are foolproof. Once we're married and back from the Maldives, we move fast. My brother knows Amanda better than she knows herself. Amy's smile was cold. He spent 6 months studying her when he interned. He knows exactly which papers she'd sign, which language she'd accept. Brandon laughed. Actually laughed. 15 years Derek has been planning this. That's dedication. It's justice, Amy said sharply. She destroyed his career over one mistake. She deserves this. I don't care about justice. Brandon's voice turned hard. I care about getting what's mine. Mom's been controlling everything my whole life. Brandon, you need to earn it. Brandon, you're not ready. I'm 32 years old. I'm ready now. I watched my son on my phone screen, his face twisted with resentment I'd never seen before. Amy leaned closer. After the wedding, Dr. Bennett will do the competency evaluation. 3 sessions, and we'll have documentation of cognitive decline. Early onset dementia, probably. How long until assisted living? Derek says 60 days, maybe 90 if she fights. But with the power of attorney you already have, it won't matter. We'll be running Richardson Properties while she's in some memory care facility arguing she's fine. Brandon's laugh made me want to vomit. Old woman has no idea what's coming. I stood in my bedroom watching my son destroy me through a phone screen. Tears streamed down my face, but I didn't make a sound. This was the boy I'd rocked to sleep when he had nightmares. The child I'd held when his father died. The young man I'd mentored, taught, loved with everything I had. And he was laughing about putting me in a memory care facility for a disease I didn't have. I dried my eyes, fixed my makeup, went back downstairs with a smile. The rest of dinner was torture. They discussed the wedding cake, the first dance song, where their parents would sit. At 9 o'clock, they prepared to leave. Brandon hugged me again. Love you, Mom. Thanks for everything. I love you too, sweetheart. Last time I'd say it and mean it. After their car pulled away, I sat at my dining room table and played the recording. Every word crystal clear, time-stamped, backed up to the cloud. Old woman has no idea what's coming. But I did know now. I knew exactly what was coming. Monday morning, 8 a.m. I arrived at Thomas Sullivan's downtown office carrying 3 banker boxes of evidence. I'd barely slept, spent all night organizing documents, printing emails, creating timelines. Thomas had been my attorney for 30 years. He'd handled Robert's estate when he died. He'd guided me through complex property deals, defended me in lawsuits, celebrated my victories. He was more than my lawyer. He was family. His secretary showed me into the conference room. Thomas walked in moments later, silver-haired and sharp-eyed at 65. "Amanda," he took one look at my face and closed the door. "What happened?" I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I set the boxes on his conference table. "My son is trying to steal everything I own. His fiancée is not who she claims to be, and her brother Derek Walsh has been planning this revenge for 15 years. Thomas's face went pale. "Derek Walsh, Amanda, you fired that man in 2009. I remember. He was blacklisted. Never worked for a major firm again." Thomas pulled up his computer, typed rapidly. "You reported him to the Real Estate Commission for falsifying appraisals. And now he's using his sister to destroy me through my son." I spread the evidence across his conference table. Documents, financial records, Michael Torres's investigation report, screenshots of the text messages. Then I played the recording from Sunday dinner. Brandon's voice filled the elegant conference room. "Old woman has no idea what's coming. She'll be in some memory care facility while we're running her empire." Thomas's expression darkened with each word. When the recording ended, he sat back in his chair. "Amanda, this isn't just civil fraud." His voice was quiet, controlled. "This is criminal conspiracy." He pulled up more information on Derek Walsh. He used insider knowledge from his 2009 internship to forge documents that look legitimate to me, because he knew exactly which papers you'd trust, which language you'd accept, how you'd review them. Thomas grabbed a legal pad and started writing. "Here's what we do." The strategy came together quickly. Thomas was thorough, methodical, brilliant. First, he said, "We challenge every document Brandon had you sign. Our argument is fraudulent inducement, not that you're incompetent, but that you were deceived by a trusted family member." I nodded, taking notes. Second, formal complaint to the Georgia Bar Association against Derek Walsh. He violated ethical rules by using privileged client information from 15 years ago. He advised a felony conspiracy. We're seeking disbarment. Good. Third, FBI. Thomas looked at me seriously. This crosses into federal wire fraud. They used electronic communications texts, emails to execute the fraud. If Summit Capital is a Delaware corporation, which most our money would cross state lines, that's federal jurisdiction. My hands trembled slightly. "You're talking about federal prison for Brandon." "I'm talking about consequences for crimes." Thomas's voice was gentle but firm. "Amanda, they plan to have you declared incompetent and locked in a memory care facility. That's elder abuse. That's a serious federal crime." I closed my eyes. Saw Brandon at 5 years old climbing into my lap with a scraped knee. Saw him at 15 angry and grieving after Robert died. Saw him at 25 telling me he wanted to make me proud. "Fourth," Thomas continued, "we execute a new will, immediately. Everything goes to charity. I recommend Atlanta Housing Foundation. Brandon gets nothing. We file it, notarize it, make it irrevocable. My entire estate. $47 million, give or take. You built it. You decide where it goes." He paused. "But Amanda, once we do this, there's no going back. Brandon will be permanently disinherited." I thought about Robert's wedding ring still in my jewelry box upstairs. Thought about the penthouse keys in my purse. Thought about 40 years of building something I'd always believed was for my son. "Do it," I said, "all of it." Thomas nodded. "Fifth and final emergency injunction. We freeze Richardson Family Holdings, LLC. No transactions, no transfers, nothing. We get a judge to block them from doing anything until we sort this out." He looked at me carefully. "Amanda, you said the wedding is Saturday." "Yes, October 19th. "And you want this handled publicly." I met his eyes. "They plan to humiliate me publicly. Competency hearings are public record. Assisted living placements become community gossip. They wanted my friends and colleagues to watch me be declared incompetent and helpless." My voice didn't shake. "I want them to watch Brandon be exposed as a fraud and a thief." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. "That's your right. But understand this means no private settlement. Brandon will face criminal charges. Your family drama will be in every newspaper. My son chose this path." I stood up. "I'm just making sure everyone sees where it leads." Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. The FBI field office in Atlanta was exactly as intimidating as I'd imagined. Gray concrete, security checkpoints, serious-faced agents moving with purpose. Thomas and I were escorted to a conference room where Special Agent Sarah Rodriguez waited. She was 38, Harvard Law former prosecutor. Michael Torres had recommended her specifically. She specialized in elder financial abuse cases. Ms. Richardson. She shook my hand firmly. Mr. Sullivan has briefed me on the situation. I've reviewed the preliminary evidence. We sat. I noticed she'd already printed out key documents. Professional. Prepared. Ms. Rodriguez. Sarah, please. Sarah, can you tell me honestly, do I have a case? Or am I a bitter mother overreacting to normal family conflict? Sarah's expression was kind but serious. Ms. Richardson, Amanda, you've done our job for us. This is one of the most well-documented fraud cases I've seen. She pulled up a presentation on her laptop, turned it toward us. You have multiple federal crimes here. Let me walk you through them. She clicked to the first slide. Wire fraud Title 18 U.S.C., Section 1343. They used electronic communications texts, emails, phone calls to execute a scheme to defraud you. That's 20 years maximum sentence. Clicking next slide. Conspiracy Title 18 U.S.C. Section 371. 3 people, Brandon, Amy, Derek, agreed to commit fraud and took substantial steps toward it. Creating the LLC, forging documents, planning the property sale. That's 5 years. Click. Identity fraud. Jessica Walsh changed her name for the specific purpose of executing this scheme. Federal prosecutors love that because it shows premeditation. Click. Elder abuse under Georgia state law. Exploitation of a person over 65 through financial manipulation. Enhanced penalties. My head was spinning. And the recording from Sunday dinner? Sarah smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. That recording is gold. We have Brandon and Amy discussing the scheme in detail. We have motive, method, timeline, everything. This is what we call an airtight case. She leaned forward. Amanda, I want to be very clear about what happens if we open an official investigation. We'll subpoena phone records, emails, bank accounts. We'll interview Summit Capital representatives. We'll execute search warrants. And Brandon will be arrested and charged with multiple federal felonies. If convicted, he's looking at 10 to 15 years in federal prison. The number hit me like a physical blow. 10 to 15 years. Brandon at 32 going into prison. Coming out at 47. Middle-aged. His life destroyed. But then I remembered, old woman has no idea what's coming. He'd planned to destroy my life first. I want to proceed, I said quietly. Sarah nodded. We can arrest them quietly Friday night. Or, she paused, studying me. Mr. Sullivan mentioned you want this public. The wedding is Saturday at Piedmont Garden Venue, 3 p.m., 150 guests. You want us to arrest them at the wedding? They plan to humiliate me publicly. I want them to face justice publicly. I met her eyes. Is that wrong? Sarah was quiet for a moment. It's not wrong. It's your choice. But Amanda, after Saturday, there's no taking it back. Brandon will have a criminal record. His mugshot will be in newspapers. Your family conflict will be entertainment news. He made his choice 3 weeks ago when he forged those documents. My voice was steady. I'm just revealing the consequences. Then we'll be ready Saturday afternoon. Sarah closed her laptop. FBI agents will be positioned as guests. We'll have arrest warrants signed by Friday. The moment you give us the signal, we move. I stood to leave, then turned back. Sarah, can I ask you something off the record? Of course. Am I a terrible mother? Her expression softened. No, you're a mother who loved her son enough to stop him from destroying himself. That's the hardest kind of love there is. Wednesday afternoon, 2:00 p.m., back in Thomas's office. A new will sat on the table before me. I, Amanda Richardson, being of sound mind and body. The words blurred as I read. This document would cut Brandon out of my life permanently. Primary beneficiary, Thomas explained, 100% of your estate to Atlanta Housing Foundation, approximately $47 million. You can specify the purpose. I suggest affordable housing for single mothers. Single mothers like I'd been after Robert died. Women struggling to raise children alone while building careers. Yes, I said. That's perfect. Specific disinheritance clause. I specifically disinherit my son Brandon Andrew Richardson for reasons he well knows. That prevents him from contesting. Thomas showed me the next section. Irrevocable trust structure. Once signed, you cannot change this will. Even if you reconcile with Brandon later, this stands. I thought about that. What if Brandon apologized? What if he got help changed, became the son I'd raised him to be? But then I remembered, she'll be in some memory care facility while we're running her empire. No, some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. I also recommend an explanatory letter, Thomas said, to be read publicly after your death, explaining why you chose the housing foundation over your son. I wrote it by hand. It took 3 drafts to get right. I built Richardson Properties for my son Brandon. I sacrificed time with him to create security for him. I thought I was building his future. But Brandon chose to steal rather than earn. He chose to betray rather than wait. He chose to laugh about institutionalizing his mother rather than honor her. So I am leaving everything I built to help mothers who actually want to build better lives for their children. To women who value family over fortune. To people who understand that legacy isn't about money, it's about love. 3 witnesses signed Thomas Michael Torres and Lawrence Palmer, my oldest business partner. Lawrence read the will and looked at me with tears in his eyes. Amanda, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry for me, I said. Be sorry for Brandon. He had everything and he threw it away. We filed the will with Fulton County Probate Court that afternoon. Permanent. Irrevocable. Brandon's inheritance 0. My empire would help strangers instead of my son. Robert's voice echoed in my memory. Build something worth keeping. I finally understood what he meant. Thursday morning, 9 a.m., Thomas filed formal complaints with the Georgia State Bar against Derek Walsh. The charges were extensive. Rule 1.6, confidentiality violation. Derek used information he gained during his 2009 internship, my business practices, my document review habits, my trust in certain legal language to facilitate fraud 15 years later. Rule 1.8, conflict of interest. He advised clients Brandon and Amy to defraud his former employer while nursing a personal vendetta. Rule 8.4, misconduct. He actively participated in criminal fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The recording mentions Derek multiple times, Thomas pointed out. Amy says my brother knows Amanda better than she knows herself. That's Derek using privileged information. He showed me Derek's billing records. Michael Torres had obtained them through legal but creative means. Derek had charged Brandon $15,000 for estate planning consultation. Translation, $15,000 to teach my son how to steal from me. The bar takes this seriously, Thomas said. Emergency ethics hearing is scheduled for Friday morning. Derek will be suspended immediately pending full disbarment proceedings. I thought about 20-year-old Derek, bright-eyed and eager in my office all those years ago. I'd seen potential in him, mentored him, then caught him falsifying documents and done what any ethical person would do, reported him. He'd spent 15 years planning revenge instead of rebuilding his character. Good, I said simply. Thursday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. I was in my Richardson Properties office trying to maintain normalcy when Brandon walked in unannounced. Hey, Mom, he smiled casual. Was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd say hi. My heart pounded, but I kept my face neutral. Brandon, what a nice surprise. He sat across from my desk, looked around the office. His eyes lingered on the Henderson contract file I'd deliberately left visible a decoy. Where's the Henderson contract? Wasn't it on your desk Monday? So he was checking up on me, making sure I hadn't noticed anything unusual. Filed it, I smiled. Why? No reason, he shrugged. Just remember you usually leave active contracts out until they close. He was testing me, seeing if my routines had changed. Wedding stress, I said lightly. I've been more organized than usual. We talked for 20 minutes. He thanked me again for everything. The penthouse, my support, my trust. Every word was poison. Mom, I want you to know. He paused, looking sincere. You've been amazing. The penthouse trusting me with more responsibility. I know I haven't always been the easiest son. I thought about the recording, Old Woman Has No Idea What's Coming. You're my son, I said quietly. Of course I trust you. He studied my face. Do you? Because lately you seem distant. My pulse spiked. He suspected something. Just wedding stress, I repeated. You know how I get with big events. I want everything perfect for you and Amy. Brandon nodded slowly. Yeah, wedding stress. That makes sense. He left 10 minutes later. I locked my office door and called Michael Torres. He just came by, looking for something, checking if I suspect anything. They're smart, Michael said. They know you well. Be careful, Amanda. That night I barely slept. Brandon was watching me now. I had to maintain the facade for 2 more days. Just 2 more days until Saturday. Friday morning, 9 a.m., Fulton County Superior Court. Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. Thomas had filed for an ex parte emergency hearing, meaning Brandon wasn't notified or present. Your Honor, Thomas began, we have clear and convincing evidence that Richardson Family Holdings, LLC, was formed through fraud. The managing member, Brandon Richardson, obtained power of attorney through deception and false pretenses. He presented the evidence efficiently, the forged documents, the audio recording, the FBI's confirmation of an ongoing investigation, the sales agreement showing a $27 million loss to my estate. Judge Morrison listened carefully. She was 59. Stern had a reputation for protecting vulnerable victims. I've reviewed the evidence, she said finally. The audio recording is particularly troubling. These individuals discussed defrauding Ms. Richardson in detail, including plans to have her falsely diagnosed with dementia. She signed the order. Richardson Family Holdings, LLC is hereby frozen. No transactions permitted. No sales transfers or encumbrances of any assets. All documents to be surrendered to court custody. Brandon Richardson is barred from accessing Amanda Richardson's properties or accounts. The injunction was served on Derek Walsh at 10:30 a.m. Friday morning. The process server later described Derek's reaction. He went white as a sheet. Said, "What the fuck, how did she? This is impossible." Now they knew. Not everything, but enough to panic. Friday afternoon, 3 p.m. My phone rang. Amy. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Amanda, hi. Her voice was too bright, too cheerful. I know we'll see you tonight at the rehearsal dinner, but I wanted to check, is everything okay? Everything's wonderful, dear. Why? Oh, just, Derek mentioned something about courthouse paperwork, some kind of filing. I'm sure it's nothing. So Derek had told them about the injunction. They were scrambling. I'm not sure what you mean, I said innocently. Everything is ready for tomorrow. I'm so excited. Long pause. You sound cheerful. Of course I'm cheerful. My son is getting married tomorrow. Another pause. I could practically hear her thinking. Amanda, has anyone contacted you about legal issues with Richardson Properties? Legal issues? No, dear. Why would there be legal issues? No reason? Her voice had lost its warmth. I'm sure it's just wedding week chaos. See you tonight. She hung up fast. I immediately called Sarah Rodriguez. They know something's wrong. Derek got the injunction this morning. They're suspicious. We're ready, Sarah said calmly. Arrest warrants are signed. Officers will be positioned at the venue tomorrow as planned. If they run, we'll pick them up tonight. They won't run, I said. Too much money at stake. They'll think they can fix this, that it's a misunderstanding. I was right. Friday, 7:00 p.m., Canoe Restaurant in Vinings. The rehearsal dinner should have been joyful. 150 guests, family friends, business associates who'd known me for decades. I arrived wearing my best dress and Robert's wedding ring on a chain around my neck, hidden under the fabric. Brandon and Amy were already there. Both looked tense. Brandon hugged me. Mom, thanks for doing this. Of course, sweetheart. I smiled. Nothing but the best for my son. Derek Walsh was there too. Best man. He watched me across the room with calculating eyes. Our eyes met. He didn't smile. Neither did I. He knew I knew something. He just didn't know how much. Dinner was served. Speeches were made. Lawrence Palmer toasted to new beginnings and family bonds. I stood to give my speech. I want to talk about family, I began. About what we build. About legacy. The room quieted. Robert and I started with nothing. We built Richardson Properties with our hands, our sweat, our sacrifice. We did it for one reason, for our son, for Brandon. Brandon looked uncomfortable. Everything we created was meant to be his foundation, his inheritance, his future. I paused, letting the words settle. Tomorrow, Brandon starts his own family, and I hope, my voice caught slightly, not entirely an act. I pray that he will value what he's been given, that he'll understand the cost of what was built, that he'll honor it. Applause filled the room, but I saw Derek whisper something to Amy, saw Amy's hand tighten on Brandon's arm. They knew something was very wrong. After dinner, I approached Brandon privately. "Sweetheart, I wanted to tell you I'm so proud of the man you've become." His eyes searched mine. "Mom, is everything okay? You seem, I don't know, different. Just emotional." I touched his face. "My baby boy is getting married. I'm allowed to be emotional." "Yeah." He didn't look convinced. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, Brandon." Last lie I'd tell him. Friday night, 11 p.m. Michael Torres called with news that changed everything. "Amanda, I found something. Something big. Tell me." "Summit Capital Group, the company supposedly buying your properties for $18 million, it doesn't exist. It's a shell company. Derek created it himself." I sat down slowly. "What now? There is no $18 million buyer. Derek was planning to liquidate your properties through the LLC, drain the accounts, and disappear. Brandon would have been left holding empty deeds and massive tax bills." The full picture crystallized. Derek wasn't just planning to steal from me. He was planning to screw Brandon too. "Exactly. Derek's revenge was against you. Brandon was just a tool, expendable." I thought about that. Brandon had betrayed me, laughed about institutionalizing me, planned to steal everything I'd built. But Derek had betrayed Brandon too. Amy or Jessica might have loved Brandon, or she might not have. Either way, Derek was planning to leave them with nothing. "Does Brandon know?" I asked. "No way. The documents look legitimate. Brandon thinks he's stealing your empire. He has no idea Derek is planning to steal from all of you." This changed the equation. Brandon was still guilty, still complicit, still deserving of consequences. But he was also a victim, manipulated by the Walsh siblings, used as a weapon in Derek's 15-year revenge plot. "Thank you, Michael." I sat alone in my office staring at Brandon's childhood photos. 5 years old with missing front teeth. 10 years old at his first baseball game. 15 years old, sullen and angry after Robert died. My son had made terrible choices. But Derek Walsh had orchestrated everything. Tomorrow, they would all face justice. Saturday, October 19th. 8:00 a.m. I woke before dawn. Couldn't sleep anymore. Today was my son's wedding day. Today was the day I would destroy his life in front of 150 witnesses. I stood before my bedroom mirror, adjusting the navy blue dress I'd chosen. Robert's favorite color. His wedding ring hung around my neck on a thin gold chain. "Robert," I whispered to his photo on my dresser, "I hope you'd be proud. Or at least, I hope you'd understand." Downstairs, I made coffee. My hands were steady. 40 years of business negotiations had taught me how to stay calm under pressure. My phone buzzed. Sarah Rodriguez. "Amanda, final check. Are you certain you want to proceed?" "I'm certain." "Officers are in position. We have 3 agents in wedding attire mixed with guests. Arrest warrants are ready. The moment you finish your speech, we move." "Understood." "Amanda," she paused. "After today, there's no taking it back. Are you ready for that?" I thought about the recording. Old woman has no idea what's coming. I thought about the forged documents with my signature. I thought about Derek Walsh's 15-year revenge plot. I thought about Brandon laughing about putting me in memory care. "I'm ready." At 10 a.m., Philip Warren called. "Amanda, I heard through my contacts that something big is happening today. Are you okay?" "Philip, I want you to know your warning saved me. Without you, I'd have lost everything." "I'm just glad I was there to hear it." He paused. "Can I ask what you decided?" "Justice," I said simply. "Public undeniable justice. And Brandon will face the consequences of his choices." Long silence. "You're a stronger woman than I am a man. I don't know if I could do what you're doing." "Yes, you could," I said quietly. "You forced me into rehab 8 years ago when I was destroying my company with bad decisions. You chose my well-being over our friendship. This is the same thing." "I guess it is." Another pause. "Amanda, for what it's worth, you're doing the right thing." After we hung up, I sat with those words. You're doing the right thing. Was I? Or was I just a bitter old woman taking revenge on her son? I pulled out the recording from Sunday dinner. Listened to it one more time. "Old woman has no idea what's coming. She'll be in some memory care facility while we're running her empire." That wasn't my son speaking. That was a stranger who looked like my son. The boy I'd raised, the one who used to climb into my lap with skinned knees, who cried at his father's funeral, who once told me I was his hero, he was gone. This Brandon, the one laughing about institutionalizing me, he was a stranger. And strangers don't get to steal from me without consequences. At noon, I received texts from wedding guests. From Diane Mitchell. So excited for today, Brandon is lucky to have you as a mother. From Lawrence Palmer. See you at 3. That penthouse gift is incredibly generous. From Stephen Hughes. Can't wait to celebrate with you. They had no idea. By tonight, they'd all know the truth. I'd be the mother who destroyed her son at his wedding. But at least I'd be the mother who told the truth. At 1 p.m., I drove to Piedmont Garden Venue. The sun was shining. October leaves were gold and red. The weather was perfect for a wedding. Perfect for a reckoning. I parked and sat in my car for 5 minutes staring at the venue. Through the windows, I could see staff arranging flowers, setting up chairs, creating the fairy tale. But fairy tales are lies. Reality is mothers who work too hard and sons who betray them. Reality is 15-year revenge plots and forged documents. Reality is choosing justice over mercy because mercy wasn't offered to you. My phone buzzed. Sarah Rodriguez. We're in position. 3 agents placed among guests. 2 more at exits. Ready when you are. I'll give the speech after dinner, around 6 p.m. We'll be ready. I got out of my car, walked toward the venue. Each step felt heavy final. There was still time to stop this. I could cancel the FBI, cancel the arrests, have a private conversation with Brandon, maybe forgive him, maybe try to salvage something. But then I remembered they planned to have me declared incompetent, lock me away, steal everything, laugh about it. No, some betrayals are too big to forgive. I pushed open the door to Piedmont Garden Venue. The wedding would go on, and so would justice. Saturday, October 19th, 3:00 p.m. Piedmont Garden Venue looked like something from a magazine. White chairs arranged in perfect rows. Flower-covered arbor where Brandon and Amy would exchange vows. String quartet playing softly. Golden October sunlight filtering through the trees. 150 guests arrived in their finest clothes. I watched them from the bride's room where I'd been hiding since 2:00. Lawrence Palmer, Diane Mitchell, Stephen Hughes, business partners who'd known me for decades. Friends who'd supported me through Robert's death. People who thought they were celebrating a wedding. They had no idea they were attending an execution. I smoothed my navy dress, checked my makeup one last time. The recording device was hidden in my clutch purse. Michael Torres had installed it yesterday. Backup in case anything went wrong with the FBI's equipment. A knock on the door. Ms. Richardson, it's time. I took a breath, opened the door. Amy's mother, Patricia Stevens, stood there. Sweet woman. Completely innocent. She had no idea her daughter had changed her name from Jessica Walsh, that everything about Amy Stevens was a carefully constructed lie. Amanda, you look beautiful, Patricia said warmly. Are you ready? As ready as I'll ever be. We walked toward the ceremony space together. Patricia squeezed my hand. I'm so grateful our children found each other. Brandon is such a wonderful young man. You raised him right. Each word was a knife. I saw Sarah Rodriguez positioned near the back, dressed in an elegant black dress that made her look like any other wedding guest. She caught my eye, nodded once. 2 other FBI agents were scattered through the crowd. I recognized them from their briefing photos, though in wedding attire they looked perfectly normal. The string quartet shifted to Pachelbel's canon. Everyone stood. Since Robert was gone, I would walk Brandon down the aisle. Mother and son together one last time. Brandon waited at the side entrance in his tuxedo. When he saw me, he smiled. That beautiful smile that had melted my heart since he was 2 years old. Mom, you look amazing. So do you, sweetheart. He offered his arm. I took it. We walked down the aisle together. 150 faces watching us, smiling, happy for us. They thought this was a beginning. It was an ending. Amy stood at the altar in her white dress. 3 years of performance culminating in this moment. She looked radiant. If I didn't know the truth, I'd think she was a beautiful bride marrying for love. I delivered Brandon to her, kissed his cheek. I love you, Mom, he whispered. I didn't answer, just squeezed his hand and took my seat in the front row. The ceremony began. Traditional vows. For better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. Such pretty lies. The officiant smiled. Brandon, do you take Amy to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Amy, do you take Brandon to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Rings exchanged, both wearing smiles. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. They kissed. The crowd applauded. Brandon and Amy, or Brandon and Jessica, were officially married. Married for approximately 3 hours until I destroyed them. 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Cocktail hour. Guests mingled on the garden terrace. Champagne flowed. Hors d'oeuvres circulated. Laughter and conversation filled the air. I played my role perfectly. Lawrence Palmer found me near the bar. Amanda, I have to say I was skeptical when you said Brandon was ready for more responsibility at Richardson Properties. But watching him today, so mature, so ready to start a family, you raised him right. I sipped champagne. Thank you, Lawrence. Diane Mitchell hugged me. Have you thought about succession planning? Brandon seems like the perfect person to take over when you're ready to retire. I have thought about succession, I said carefully. Very carefully. She didn't catch the undertone. I watched Brandon and Amy across the terrace. They were surrounded by friends laughing, celebrating. Derek Walsh stood with them, champagne in hand, looking confident. They thought they'd won. At 4:30, I overheard Derek and Amy in a quiet corner. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, they just didn't see me behind the floral arrangement. Monday morning we move, Derek said quietly. You call Dr. Bennett, schedule the competency evaluation. I want Amanda declared incompetent by end of month. Amy nodded. And the power of attorney? Already in effect. Brandon can start transferring assets to Richardson Family Holdings as soon as you're back from honeymoon. They didn't know I was 10 feet away. They didn't know FBI agents were recording every word. They didn't know Summit Capital was fake, that Derek planned to steal from Brandon too. 15 years of planning, and they'd gotten sloppy at the finish line. At 5 o'clock, Brandon found me alone by the garden fountain. Mom, he sat beside me. Thank you for everything. The penthouse, the support, just everything. I looked at my son, really looked at him. When did I lose you, I wondered. When did you become someone who could laugh about institutionalizing his mother? You're my son, I said quietly. I'd do anything for you. I know this hasn't been easy. Since Dad died, you've had to carry everything alone. He took my hand. But Amy's family now. We're going to help. You don't have to carry the burden anymore. Burden. That's what I'd become to him, not his mother, not the woman who'd raised him alone, built an empire for him, sacrificed everything for him. A burden to be removed. Brandon, I said carefully, do you remember what your father used to say, build something worth keeping? He nodded. Yeah, that's what you did. Richardson Properties. No, I squeezed his hand. That's not what he meant. He meant build relationships, build trust, build love. Brandon looked confused. Mom, are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. I stood. I should go check on dinner arrangements. I walked away, feeling his eyes on my back. Last normal conversation we'd ever have. 6 o'clock p.m. 150 guests settled at round tables decorated with white roses and gold accents. The head table held Brandon, Amy, Derek, bridesmaids, and groomsmen. I sat at a nearby table with Lawrence, Diane, and other business associates. Dinner was served. Filet mignon, roasted vegetables, wine flowing freely. I barely touched my food. My stomach was twisted in knots. Sarah Rodriguez sat 3 tables away, positioned for a clear view of the head table. Our eyes met. She mouthed ready. I nodded. The wedding coordinator, a cheerful woman named Jennifer, approached my table. Ms. Richardson, we're ready for toasts whenever you are. I stood. My legs felt steady. 40 years of business presentations had taught me how to command a room. Jennifer handed me a microphone. I walked toward the head table. The room gradually quieted. Conversations faded. Glasses stopped clinking. 150 faces turned toward me. Brandon smiled, expecting a touching mother of the groom speech. Amy looked confident, relaxed. Derek leaned back in his chair, completely comfortable. None of them had any idea their world was about to collapse. I tapped the microphone. Sharp feedback cut through the room. Complete silence. Thank you all for being here today, I began. My voice was steady, clear. As Brandon's mother, I've looked forward to this moment for years. Warm smiles from the crowd. I want to talk to you about trust, about family, about what we build, and about what happens when trust is betrayed. The room shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't a typical wedding speech. Brandon's smile flickered. 3 weeks ago, I continued, Brandon came to my home with estate planning documents. He said they were routine trust restructuring. I signed them without reading carefully. Why? Because I trusted my son. I pulled papers from my clutch, held them up. But those documents weren't trust restructuring. They were power of attorney, property transfer authorizations, documents that gave Brandon control over everything I own. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Brandon started to stand. Sit down, Brandon. He froze. Something in my voice made him obey. I held up more papers. These documents transferred all my properties to Richardson Family Holdings, LLC, registered August 15, 2024. Managing member Brandon Andrew Richardson. My name appears nowhere on this company. The room erupted in murmurs. Here's the interesting part, I said, voice cutting through the noise. This is a sales agreement between Richardson Family Holdings and Summit Capital Group. Sale price $18 million. Market value of my properties $45 million. I paused, letting the numbers sink in. A $27 million loss. Why would Brandon do this? Amy was pale. Derek's jaw was tight. Let me introduce you to some people, I continued. This woman, I pointed at Amy. Her name is not Amy Stevens, it's Jessica Walsh. She changed her name legally in March 2019. Amy's face drained of color. Jessica Walsh is the sister of Derek Walsh. I pointed at Derek. Derek worked for me as an intern in 2009. I fired him for falsifying property appraisals fraud. I reported him to the Georgia Real Estate Commission. He was blacklisted from every major firm in Atlanta. Everyone turned to stare at Derek. Derek spent 15 years planning revenge, I said. His sister changed her identity, tracked my son's movements, and approached him at the June 2021 Atlanta Real Estate Summit. Everything their meeting, their relationship, this wedding was calculated. The room was frozen in shock. But wait, I said. There's more. Let me play you something. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the venue's sound system. The recording from Sunday dinner filled the elegant space. Brandon's voice, think she suspects anything. Amy's voice, no way, your mother signed everything without reading. Derek's voice, the documents are foolproof. Brandon laughing, old woman has no idea what's coming. She'll be in some memory care facility while we're running her empire. Amy, Derek says 60 days, maybe 90. We'll have her declared incompetent. The recording ended. Absolute silence. Some guests were crying. Others looked furious. Amy's parents looked devastated. They'd had no idea their daughter had changed her name, that she'd been living a lie. I hoped, I said quietly, that Brandon was manipulated, that he was a victim, but that recording proves otherwise. I looked directly at my son. You knew about the forged documents. You laughed about putting me in assisted living. You called my company Our Empire. You weren't tricked, Brandon. You chose this. Brandon's face crumbled. Mom, let me tell you what happens now. I pulled out more documents. On Wednesday, I executed a new will. My entire estate, $47 million, will be donated to Atlanta Housing Foundation to build affordable housing for single mothers. I held up the will. Brandon, you inherit nothing. You are specifically disinherited. This will is irrevocable, filed with the court, permanent. Brandon collapsed into his chair. On Friday, Judge Patricia Morrison granted an emergency injunction. Richardson Family Holdings, LLC is frozen. No transactions, no transfers, nothing. Derek's face went white. On Thursday, the Georgia State Bar received formal ethics complaints against Derek Walsh for using privileged client information to commit fraud. Derek, you'll be disbarred. I looked at Derek. 15 years of planning, all for nothing. Finally, I signaled to Sarah Rodriguez. On Tuesday, I met with FBI Special Agent Sarah Rodriguez. She opened an investigation into wire fraud conspiracy and elder abuse. Sarah stood, badge visible. FBI, Derek Walsh, Jessica Walsh, Brandon Richardson, you're under arrest. Chaos erupted. Derek tried to run. An FBI agent blocked the exit. Derek Walsh, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Amy grabbed Brandon's arm. Brandon, do something. A female FBI agent approached. Jessica Walsh, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, identity fraud, and elder abuse. Jessica, Amy's mother screamed. What is she talking about, Amy? Jessica didn't answer, just stood there as handcuffs were placed on her wrists. Brandon looked at me across the room, tears streaming down his face. Mom, please, we can talk about this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The third FBI agent approached him. Brandon Richardson, you're being detained for questioning regarding conspiracy to commit fraud. Mom, Brandon's voice broke. Please. I watched my son, my only child, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd loved, be led away in handcuffs alongside the woman he'd married 3 hours ago. The wedding was over. So was my family. Guests were in shock. Some rushed toward me asking if I was okay. Others fled toward the exits. Some filmed on their phones. This would be all over social media within hours. Lawrence Palmer reached me first. Amanda, my God. Are you all right? I'm fine, Lawrence. Diane Mitchell was crying. I can't believe Brandon would do this. You're the strongest woman I know. Patricia Stevens, Amy's mother, approached sobbing. Amanda, I had no idea. I swear I didn't know she changed her name. I don't understand any of this. I touched her arm. I know. You're a victim too. They lied to all of us. Derek was being led past me. He stopped despite the agent's grip on his arm and looked at me with pure hatred. You destroyed my life 15 years ago, he spat. This was justice. No, I said quietly. This is justice. By 7:00 p.m., the venue was empty except for staff cleaning up the remnants of what should have been a celebration. I stood alone in the garden where Brandon and Amy had exchanged vows 3 hours ago. 3 hours married. Both arrested. Marriage would be annulled before they ever spent a night together as husband and wife. Sarah Rodriguez approached. Amanda, are you okay? I don't know, I said honestly. I just had my son arrested at his wedding. Am I supposed to be okay? You did the right thing. Did I just prove Brandon right that I value my empire more than I value him? Sarah was quiet for a moment. You valued the truth. That's different. She handed me her card. Call me if you need anything. The DA will be in touch about next steps. Court proceedings will start next week. After she left, I walked to my car. My phone was exploding with messages. Calls from friends, colleagues, reporters who'd somehow already heard. I ignored them all. Drove home to my empty mansion in silence. The next 72 hours were a blur. Sunday morning I woke to find my story was national news. Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Mother exposes son's $45 million fraud at wedding. CNN. Wedding ends in FBI. Arrests after mother's shocking speech. New York Times. When family becomes fraud. The Amanda Richardson case. Social media exploded. Hashtag Richardson wedding trended on Twitter. Videos from the wedding filmed by guests on their phones went viral. I watched one video with 2.3 million views. It showed me playing the recording, Brandon's voice filling the venue. Old woman has no idea what's coming. Comments ranged from supportive to cruel. Good for her. Son got what he deserved. But she disinherited him completely. That's harsh. Amanda chose her empire over her son. What kind of mother does that? The kind who raised a thief, apparently. I turned off my phone. Couldn't look anymore. Monday morning, 9 a.m. bail hearings. I didn't attend. Couldn't face Brandon yet. Thomas Sullivan called me with updates. Derek Walsh bail set at $500,000. He can't make it. Remanded to custody. Jessica Walsh bail set at $300,000. Her parents don't have that kind of money. Remanded to custody. Brandon, Thomas paused. Bail set at $400,000. Amanda, Brandon's asking if you'll post bail. My heart stopped. His attorney called me. Brandon can't make bail on his own. He's asking if you'll help him. The boy I'd raised, sitting in jail, asking his mother, the mother he'd tried to defraud, to bail him out. No, I said. He made his choices. He lives with them. Amanda. No, Thomas. He laughed about putting me in memory care. He can sit in jail for a week and think about what he did. Brandon was remanded to custody, all 3 of them in Fulton County Jail. Tuesday, I forced myself to go to work. Richardson Properties needed me. Clients needed reassurance that the company was stable despite the scandal. My employees were incredible, supportive, rallying around me. but I could see the questions in their eyes. How did you not know your own son was stealing from you? Good question. One I asked myself every night. Wednesday afternoon, Michael Torres called with news. Amanda, I've confirmed it. Summit Capital Group is completely fake. Derek created it. There is no $18 million buyer. So Derek was planning to steal from Brandon too? Yes. He would have liquidated your properties through the LLC, taken the money, and disappeared. Brandon would have been left with nothing but criminal charges. I sat with that information. Brandon had betrayed me, but Derek had planned to betray Brandon. My son was guilty, but he was also a victim. That didn't excuse what he'd done, but it complicated things. Wednesday afternoon, 3 p.m. I drove to Fulton County Jail. Visiting hours were 2 to 4 p.m. I'd called ahead, made arrangements. Brandon didn't know I was coming. The jail was exactly as depressing as I'd imagined. Gray concrete, fluorescent lights, the smell of industrial cleaner and despair. I sat in the visiting room, phone and glass partition set up. Brandon walked in 5 minutes later. Orange jumpsuit, handcuffs, 5 days of stubble, eyes red from crying. When he saw me, he broke down. He picked up the phone. I picked up mine. Neither of us spoke for 30 seconds. We just looked at each other through the glass. Mom, he finally whispered. I'm so sorry. Sorry for what, Brandon? For planning to steal from me, for laughing about putting me in assisted living, for spending 3 years lying to me. Which part are you sorry for? All of it. Everything. Tears streamed down his face. I was angry, jealous. Amy made me feel like I deserved more, like you were holding me back. So this is Amy's fault, Jessica's fault. No, it's mine. I made the choice. I signed the documents. I laughed about it. His voice broke. That was me. I did that. First time he'd taken full accountability. The FBI told me something, I said quietly. Derek wasn't planning to share the money with you. Summit Capital is fake. There is no $18 million buyer. Derek was going to take everything and disappear, leaving you with empty properties and tax bills. Brandon's face showed genuine shock. What up? Derek used Amy to get to me, but he was using you too. You thought you were stealing my empire. He was planning to steal from both of us. Brandon laughed bitterly. So I destroyed my relationship with you, committed fraud, ruined my life, and I was going to end up with nothing anyway. That's what revenge looks like, I said. Derek spent 15 years planning to hurt me. You were just collateral damage. Long silence. Did you mean it? Brandon asked. The will am I really disinherited? Yes. He nodded, accepting. I deserve that. Your attorney can negotiate a plea deal, I said. If you plead guilty, cooperate with prosecution, testify against Derek and Amy, the DA might offer probation instead of prison. Hope flickered in his eyes. You do that for me. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because you're my son, and I can't send you to prison if there's another option. I paused. But Brandon, understand this, whether you go to prison or not, you are not my son anymore. Not the way you were. That Brandon, the boy I raised, he's gone. You killed him. I understand, he whispered. Do you really understand what you took from me? I don't know what you mean. You took my ability to trust, I said. You took my joy in building this business. You took my memories. I can't look at your baby pictures without seeing the man who tried to steal from me. I can't remember teaching you to ride a bike without remembering you laughing about my cognitive decline. My voice was steady, but tears ran down my face. You didn't just try to steal my money, Brandon. You stole my past. Every good memory I have of you is poisoned now. Brandon broke down completely. Mom, please, I'll do anything to make this right. There is no making this right. There's only moving forward. I stood to leave. Mom, wait. Brandon's voice was desperate. Why did you do it publicly at the wedding? Why not just have me arrested quietly? I met his eyes through the glass. Because you were going to humiliate me publicly. Competency hearing. Assisted living placement. You wanted my friends to watch me be declared incompetent. I paused. I wanted them to watch you be exposed as a fraud. Public sin, public penance. Did it make you feel better? No, I said honestly. It made me feel like a monster, but it was still the right thing to do. I hung up the phone, walked away. Behind me, Brandon mouthed through the glass, "I love you." I didn't turn around. 3 months passed. Derek Walsh pleaded not guilty. Trial scheduled for February. Facing 15 years federal prison. Permanently disbarred. Jessica Walsh pleaded not guilty. Trial scheduled for February. Facing 10 years. Divorced from Brandon after 3 months of marriage. Marriage annulled technically since it was based on fraud. Brandon Richardson took the plea deal. Pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud. Sentenced to 5 years probation, 2,000 hours community service, $50,000 restitution to me. Convicted felon. Banned permanently from Richardson Properties. I didn't attend his sentencing. Couldn't face it. But Thomas Sullivan told me Brandon gave a statement to the judge. "Your Honor, I betrayed my mother. I laughed about institutionalizing her. I tried to steal everything she built. I deserve prison. But I'm asking for a chance to prove I can change. To become the man my father would have wanted me to be. The man my mother tried to raise me to be." The judge gave him probation instead of prison. Lenient sentence for a serious crime, but Brandon would carry that felony conviction for life. December came. Christmas. I set my dining table for one. Turkey breast, mashed potatoes, wine, 11 empty chairs around the table. My phone rang at 8 p.m. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello. Mom, it's me. I'm using a friend's phone. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but it's Christmas." Brandon's voice. I hadn't heard it in 3 months. "I'm at a halfway house. Probation requires it. I'm doing my community service at Habitat for Humanity, building houses for people who can't afford them." Silence on my end. "I'm not calling to ask for anything," he continued. "I just wanted to say Merry Christmas, and that I'm still here, still trying, and I still love you." My hand tightened on the phone. "Brandon, you don't have to say it back. I know. I just needed you to hear it." He hung up. I sat at my empty table, phone in hand, tears streaming. I whispered to the silence, "I love you too." But he was already gone. October 19th, 2025. 1 year after the wedding. I stood in front of a crowd at the groundbreaking ceremony for Richardson Housing Project. 50 units of affordable housing for single mothers. First building funded by my estate's future charitable trust. Media was present. Community leaders, people who'd followed my story. I gave a speech. 1 year ago today, I made national news for having my son arrested at his wedding. People called me a hero. People called me a monster. I paused, looking at the crowd. The truth is, I'm neither. I'm a mother who built an empire and lost her son in the process. I'm a widow who worked too hard to avoid grief. I'm a businesswoman who thought success meant money when it actually means legacy. I gestured to the construction site behind me. My late husband Robert used to say, "Build something worth keeping." I thought he meant build a company, but he meant build relationships, build trust, build love. I failed at that. My voice caught slightly. So today I'm starting over. This building will house 50 single mothers, women like I was in 1984 alone, scared, determined. When I die, my entire estate will fund more buildings like this. I looked directly at the cameras. My son tried to take everything from me. In response, I gave everything away. Not for revenge, not for spite, but because I finally understand what legacy really means. The crowd applauded. Cameras flashed. At the back of the crowd, I saw him. Brandon, wearing work clothes from his Habitat for Humanity job. He hadn't known I'd be here. Our eyes met across 50 yards of space. He nodded. I nodded back. Then he turned and left. Still too soon. Maybe always too soon. But at least he was building things now. Honest things. With his own hands. Maybe Robert would be proud of that. That evening, I returned home to find a letter in my mailbox. No return address. Handwritten. "Dear Mom, I saw you at the groundbreaking today. I didn't stay because I didn't want to disrupt your day. But I needed to tell you something. I've been sober for 1 year. In therapy for 1 year. Building houses for people who actually need them for 1 year. I finally understand what Dad meant about building something worth keeping. I'm building a life worth keeping. Small, honest, earned. And maybe someday I'm building a relationship with you again. 1 day at a time. 1 conversation at a time. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope for understanding. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry it took losing everything to learn what that really means. Brandon, I read the letter 3 times. Then I picked up my phone and texted the number he'd called from at Christmas. I saw you at the groundbreaking. Thank you for coming. Would you like to have coffee next week? 3 minutes later, yes. Please. Coffee the following Tuesday. Same Midtown coffee shop where Philip had overheard the original conspiracy. Fitting somehow. Brandon arrived 10 minutes early. I arrived 5 minutes early. We sat across from each other, awkward, broken. Thank you for meeting me, he said quietly. I read your letter. We talked for 2 hours. About his therapy. About what he'd learned. About the houses he was building. About the life he was rebuilding. I testified against Derek and Jessica last month, he said. Their trials are in February. I told the prosecutors everything. I know, Thomas told me. Derek really was planning to screw me over, Brandon said. Summit Capital was fake. He was going to leave me with nothing but criminal charges while he disappeared with millions. I know. I was such a fool. You were, I agreed. But you're not one anymore. His eyes filled with tears. Do you think, someday, we could be mother and son again? I thought about that. Really thought. I don't know, I said honestly. That Brandon, the one who laughed about institutionalizing me, I can't be mother to him. He's gone. Brandon nodded, accepting. But this Brandon, I gestured to him, the one who's building houses, who's taking responsibility, who's doing the work to change. Maybe I could be mother to him, someday. I'll wait, he said, however long it takes. We finished our coffee, parted with an awkward hug. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. Maybe not ever, but it was a beginning. I'm 73 years old now as I record this story for you. People ask me all the time, do you regret exposing Brandon at his wedding? The answer is complicated. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my son became someone capable of what he did. I regret that I worked so hard building an empire that I forgot to build a relationship with my child. But do I regret stopping him? No. Sometimes love means stopping the people we love from destroying themselves, even when it costs us everything. Especially when it costs us everything. If you're watching this and you're facing betrayal from someone you love, here's what I learned. First, protect yourself. Don't let love make you a victim. I almost lost everything because I trusted blindly. Second, truth matters more than comfort. Yes, exposing Brandon was painful, but living in a lie would have been worse. Third, justice and mercy aren't opposites. I chose justice publicly, but I also gave Brandon a path to redemption privately. Both were necessary. Fourth, you can love someone and still hold them accountable. Brandon is still my son. I still love him. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Fifth, legacy isn't about money. It's about what you leave behind in people's hearts. I'm leaving $47 million to help single mothers. That's worth more than leaving it to a son who didn't value it. Last month, Brandon completed his 2,000 hours of community service. He sent me a photo of the last house he helped build. A small home for a single mother with 2 children. He wrote, "This is what building something worth keeping looks like. Thank you for teaching me that, even if I had to lose everything to learn it." I framed that photo. It sits on my desk next to Robert's picture. My husband was right all along. Build something worth keeping. Not money, not property, not empires. Love, truth, character. Those are the things worth keeping.